Monoliths dominate our world. Larger-than-life personalities, products, and ideas wrap around our day-to-day lives in a way unlike anything else in human history. Certain monoliths are obvious, right? The golden arches of Mickey D's, gold admired pictures is Lion before films, and whatever the hell Blizzard's logo is. In the world of board games, there exists a towering monolith. One that has won the world over with its tight design, cutthroat world, and engaging gameplay. I'm of course talking about Monopoly. In the game of buying and selling properties, you win or you beg your parents to bail you out of bankruptcy. As you can tell, that's a bit of a joke. Today, I'm talking about the recently released and soon to be globally available, relatively compact micro missile that is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Quite a few people in the US have already played this game by Cephalofair. I know my wife and I have. And for a great deal of those people, Jaws of the Lion has been their initial foray into the world of the GLEU. That's the Gloomhaven Extended Universe, right? Marvel's doing it, DC's doing it. You know, we gotta get in on this, right? This foray into the GLEU has left many people wanting and hungry for more. There are a few things to note before I go further, though. I initially tried to get into the behemoth that is the original Gloomhaven about a year ago, right? You know, the before times. And me and my wife both tried it, and we found it to be such a grueling experience to play the original Gloomhaven, right? The convoluted 52-page rulebook left our heads rolling and us gasping for air, right? The setup time for the original Gloomhaven, right, ranged from anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes, even with an organizer in the box. And the sheer anxiety that stems from wondering, will we ever even finish this game, all left a rather confused, tired, and sad taste in both our mouths. But through it all, there existed the same thought in both our minds, right? I wish I was as clever as this game. And that's all about what Gloomhaven was, right? Is every time you play it, you're like, oh, my brain is just not big enough for this, right? I got a tiny pee-pee brain, and I need, galaxy brain, right? And I was left yearning for a time where I could buckle down, take off my training wheels, and dive into the plethora of content that Gloomhaven had to offer. That time never came, but what instead showed up was Jaws the Lion. This review is intended for people who were like myself and my wife prior to playing Jaws the Lion. People who liked hobby games, who were just too intimidated by the heavyweight champion of the hobby world to even try playing it, but who are at the very least willing to give it another go if it could just be made simpler, right? If it could just have a smaller barrier to entry. But if you have $50 to spend, or whatever the local equivalent is in your place, right, and 25 to 35 hours to spare on a campaign that has at minimum 14 and at max 22 scenarios per campaign, you gotta play Jaws the Lion. The rest of this review is to tell you why. The two most important changes to the basic system of Gloom, that's me, my wife's name for the big papa himself, he's not dead, he's just, fat, are the introduction of a scenario book and a 5-scenario tutorial, gently easing you into the systems of Gloom, right? Both of these have been talked about at length by a wide variety of people who are better equipped, more experienced, better trained, and better equipped than I am. But for the sake of being thorough, and the sake of keeping all the content you need to know about Gloomhaven in this review, I'm going to talk about them very briefly. This scenario book is single-handedly responsible for having allowed Jaws of the Lion to hit our table almost every night straight for 3 weeks. The longest setup ever took was 20 minutes, and it tended to range around 10. Though I will say, the setup is still long, right? If you're used to playing typical hobby games, like your lighter fare, like Wingspan, and the light family fare of Ticket to Ride, that's still an insanely long setup time. But it still is greatly reduced as compared to the Big Papa himself, And of course that setup time doesn't include the setup time for the player to set up their own character area themselves, right? If everyone else is setting up their character area while one person is setting up the map, that tends to be an effective use of time. But it still ranges to a really reduced amount of time, especially compared to the original game. This book is wonderful, and if/when the Dawn, Isaac Childers himself decides to release it for both original Gloom and Wendy's soon-to-be favorite Frosty Gloom, I'm jumping at the bit for him, and I think a lot of other people will too, because the cardboard tiles of the original Gloom and the cardboard tiles I'm going to be coming with, Frosthaven, are wonderful experiences if you're all about community content and making your own content for Gloomhaven. But if you're like me, you're a simple little peasant in your little village, where Babushka gives you turnips every day, you want something easier, you want something that you can set up, tear down, like that, and that's what the scenario books really help you to do. But this is like not an exaggeration though. Like the setup time is so greatly reduced because you no longer have to wonder to yourself every time you pull out Gloomhaven, Isaac, but why in the hell are there 3 different kinds of tables? Right? Like I get art assets are a thing, but there's like you got wood, you got log, you got stone. Like what's the deal, dude? Here's the second star of the show. The 5 scenario tutorial that encompasses the majority of the Learn to Play book. Oh, you thought only Fantasy Flight had the dual book layout of Learn to Play and Glossary? Oh, no. You see, Cephalofair Games have realized the reason why that double book system works. When you learn the way that the manuals are set up, right, which is highly intuitive for non-gamers, I will say, you can access everything much faster, right? Because you can look through the Learn to Play, to figure out the rules of play, and then when you have specific questions about specific rules, you go to the glossary and you look it up by term. There are, of course, some issues with the glossary. Sometimes terms are like, like attack is, well, that's a bad example. Scenario level, right? Or level is not underneath L, or is underneath L and not S, or at the very least, S doesn't redirect you to L. It's kind of a little confusing, but it's still incredibly, I much prefer it over the original rulebook, right? And this tutorial, right? This tutorial in the Learn to Play book, coupled with a player who has a firm grasp on the rules, either by reading ahead, watching Mr. Rodney and watch it played, it really lets you get rid of the rules overhead, right? Because the scenario book itself, right? You may have noticed in this, this blue text on the scenario book that during the tutorial tells you some of the rules as you play. So you can even have players just looking at the map to figure out, oh, that's what this does, that's what this does, etc., etc. This tutorial just really, oh man, it stacks over the barrier to entry and lets anyone in, and that's wonderful, right? And there are some people, of course, who don't like that style of rulebook management, right? And to those people, I say, pretty simply, but all right, listen, you can buy the original Gloomhaven, right? Drop the $100 or so bucks, and then put it on top of your pile of GMT games about the Great Tulip Crash of 1636, And when after you do that, right, you look at the book, you look at Gloomhaven, right? Look at the rule book, get in the bath with it, right? And then through reverse osmosis, you'll learn the rules, like any other Joe Schmo uploading the rule book to his database, So if you don't really care for this, just buy the original game, Like if you don't want your handheld, just do that. But I know for me, like I got little baby hands. I got little baby hands that need to be held. And I need Mr. Isaac Childers and his dev team to like hold my hand for me while I learn the game. It's just that simple. At any rate, this tutorial is a genius move by Isaac, because it makes the rules not consume your entire existence. It leaves you room to breathe, to enjoy the systems, to have a hand free that everyone doesn't have to have their own reference guide. You can just have a drink, a water, an orange juice, anything. So those are the perks that make Jaws Lion a much better, initial experience, right? A much higher quality of life experience than the original Gloom. But that's the tutorial systems, right? So what about the gameplay? What about the meat on these bones, right? Because, you can dress up a pig, but how does it taste, right? How's that pork chop sizzle on the cast iron? How's it go, right? I'll really only be talking about 2 characters in depth, right? Because, you have the 4 cast, right? The Demolitionist, the Void Warden, the Hatchet, and the Red Guard. But me and my wife only played with 2 of the characters, right? So we'll be focusing on the Demolitionist and the Void Warden. Speaking of the Demolitionist, like look at this guy, look at this girl, look at this comrade. Shout out to all my non-binary fans out there. Like look at that, look at those fists, right? The one of them says bye. She just doesn't give a shit. She just fuck you, It's just that easy. The Demolitionist is the big melee damage dealer of the party, right? They specialize in busting walls, busting pillars, busting tables, busting skulls, busting some nuts, You know, the demolitionist does not care what you think. The demolitionist is here to party, and you are going to accept your fate as the party that's being demolished, right? The demolitionist feels every single step of the way like you're there to take names and cause property damage. Demo in our game, colloquially known as Gronk Ball Speaker, you know, was a freaking force in nature. Taking names left and right, demons, cultists, golems, who cares? You're just rubble to the demolitionist. You know, if you love the feeling of being a bruiser, of being a tank, of just being a big old smashy boy, you know, if you played Team Fortress 2 and you were boxing heavy, you gotta go for the demo, right? You know, good things come in small packages, you know? But you also gotta realize, you know, you got the muscle of the group, you got the teeny tiny little muscle, right? But sometimes you need more muscle. And what if you don't have more friends, right? You need more muscle, so you borrow it from the enemy team, right? You say, listen, I don't have enough plastic to go around. I need cardboard muscle, you know? I'm gonna beat the crap out of that guy with his own buddy. Yeah, his own buddy's gonna walk up and punch him in the face. And that's where the Void Warden comes in. That's the character I played, right? And what's the Void Warden about, right? Like, what the hell is a Void Warden, you know? Do you like watch the Void like a prison guard? No. All right. Listen, for all my 40K comrades out there, imagine if chaos caressed your cheek when you were a baby. All right. That's who and what the Void Warden is. All right. So now that chaos magic, that void magic, right? Void Warden heals. Void Warden poisons. Void Warden takes over minds. Void Warden blasts you into the nether dimension. You know, the Void Warden will make your enemies punch each other in the face while you die laughing. And all the while, you're healing your allies, you're having them punch the enemy for you. It's incredible, right? The Void Warden lets you feel like, you know, the brain jack, right? Lets you feel like a little psychomaniac, you know? You're playing like with psionics and forfeit. You use mind control. You cast mind control as a 7th level spell, and the dragon's like, must eat poop, you know? And that's what playing the Void Warden is like, you know? The demolitionist is out here, bop, bop, you know, bopping heads, you know, blasting a crater in the room. You're out here using Jedi mind tricks and a dark orb to just like cast dark, you know, magics about, and you're just like, I don't care. I'm here, you know, I'm here and you're gone. Bye-bye, little man. So I lied to you earlier, right? Because I said the demolitionist was the muscle, but that's not true. The Void Warden is the muscle. And my suspicion is next time I'll play, you know, as the other two characters we haven't talked about, right? The Scorpion ripoff for Mortal Kombat 2, I'm joking. You know, it's more like Scorpion if he really had a thing for lobsters, right? My guy Redguard, you know, I'd be saying Redguard's the real muscle, right? You know, throwing your chain around with your sickles, you know, that's the real muscle of it. But I was playing as Hatchet, you know, I was playing as the sniper archetype with axes. I'd say the same thing for him, because every single one of these characters feels so strong when you're playing them. And when you see your buddy playing, you're like, oh man, you're so strong. And they're like, oh man, you're so strong. And you give yourself each other a little smooch, you know, and a little hug, and you know, a little wine, a little dinner later, you know, you wake up in bed together, you make breakfast, and you get married, you know, and that's just life, you know, that's just board game life. So why have I been talking about like this couple experience, right? I've been talking about this wine and dine experience that Isaac Childress leads you down and Seth LaFair sets you up on this date with, right? Because at 2 players, you know, I played the original Gloomhaven at 2, at 1, at 3, at 4. You know, every single time I play any kind of Gloomhaven system at 2, it just sings, right? Because it's like you walk into an escape room that's designed for 2 people, and you were both given half the materials, but you can't talk about the materials, right? Because that's the genius thing about the comment system. You can say a lot of things, but you can't say numbers and you can't say names. So you can talk, you know, all about I'm going to blow a hole in them, and you know in your brain, you're like, oh, they're talking about the big one, right? That's the big one I'm talking about. But your buddy might be thinking, hey, I'm going to blow in the hole in their chest by punching them into the wall. And the game of Gloomhaven is as much as it is this combat, tactical, counter-terrorist puzzle, you know, it's also this 2-player communication exercise, you know, where you're trying to figure out how do we talk about this, you know? How do we really disrespect the rules without breaking them, you know? And when you figure out how to do that, you know, and you're like communicating in code, and you're like, you know, I'm gonna blast them in the next Tuesday, and you know that if you said Wednesday, then it's a different move than if you said Tuesday, right? And so this combination of moves makes it feel like, you know, within the lore of the game, you have this mercenary group that you're playing as, and it feels like their communication improves over the course of the game, and your communication with your partner improves. And the game itself really improves, right? Because the first couple scenarios you're struggling in them, you know, you're like, oh, there's like 3 guys, I exhausted, I'm out, you gotta take them on alone, and you're like, oh, we failed. What can we do next time, you know? And it's like, you gotta communicate better. You gotta leave your buddy some presents before you leave, you know? There's so many other things you can do. And so Gloomhaven, as much as anything, is this 2-player combat puzzle. It's not this like dungeon crawler stereotype where you're like, I'm gonna bust in there, you know, my name's Detective McSmashy. I'm gonna crush skulls, take names, I ain't gonna file no paperwork, you know. You're mercenaries. You're gonna get your job done, but you gotta think smart about it, right? How many zealots are in the next room? How many cards have they gone through in their attack deck, you know? What are they likely to do next? You know, can I stand to take a wound here? Can I stand if my buddy takes a wound here, you know? And so this puzzle really just shines at 2 players. And you know, if you have a significant other or a roommate or a brother or a son or a father or a daughter or a mother or an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent or a cat or, you know, yourself, you can also play solo. It's pretty good solo, but I don't really like solo gaming that much. It's kind of a weird aside, but solo games kind of tough because you just got video games, you know, and I understand that board games and video games are a little different each, but like, I'd rather play board games for the social aspect, you know. That's just me. But anyway, this puzzle is just, every time you play, it scratches an itch that you didn't even know you have. You know, you're like, ah, yes! It's like a comb in my hair. And my hair is knotty and messy. And it's so hard to describe Gloomhaven. And it's like a thorough experience because you can talk about a thorough experience of, it's about action selection and managing risk versus failure and trying to figure out what is the best way for me to get my best personal reward while also discussing with my partner. And yeah, you can play it like that, but just do a raid and WoW. Come on. You play board game, dude. You need to chill. You need to get into it, right? You need to put those puzzles together. You know, square peg, round hole. No. Square peg, triangle hole. We're thinking ahead here, folks. We're thinking ahead. All right? In this game, as a 2-player puzzle, and much less as a 2-player combat game, it's just, it's wonderful. And I can't. Isaac Childress has got the biggest brain in the world, dude. And he's making bank for it. That's incredible to me. You know, normally that feeling, right? That feeling you normally get when you play the game, right? What the feeling I'm talking about is normally a call, you know, like you need to go get help, you need to go to rehab, you know, it's not healthy to, like, you know, put your pants back up. It's a board game, it's cardboard, you're married, stop, you know. But cardboard, it satiates. It makes you feel smart. It makes you feel clever. You do it and you're like, oh, I feel incredible. You know, my cards are helping me figure things out, right? You know, am I gonna do a big blanket, you know? Big blanket to just cover over the enemies and just say, shh, sleep. It's okay, my little baby, you know? It'll be okay. Just go to sleep and take 2 damage a turn. Or do you say, nope, I'm gonna burn through all of my 11 cards in 1 turn and then, you know, everyone's dead. We did it. Good job, team. High fives. And your buddy's left in the room with like 3 guys, and you're like, oh, how am I supposed to kill you? And you're just like, I killed 8 of them, dude. You try it. You know? And those trade-offs, right? That thought between, that trade-off between surviving and thriving is just, I keep saying this, but every single time I think about the systems, I'm just like, Gloomhaven. It's illegal. What you're doing to me is illegal. Only 1 county in Nevada lets you do this, Gloomhaven. You're doing this for free. Worldwide. Come on. So if you haven't tried out Gloomhaven yet, and you got the need for good, local, small player count entertainment, I can't recommend Jaws of Lion enough, right? Previously my go-to co-op was Spirit Island, you know, and when Jagged Earth comes out and I play a little bit more, maybe it'll be back to Spirit Island, but Jaws of the Lion just, the puzzle of it just makes you go, oh, yes, I'm so smart. This cardboard is so stupid. You know, and just, you get all that at a great value, right? The base box, right? By my math, by doing the math from the number of hours that me and my wife spent, we both paid $1.30 an hour for this game, right? And that's great. Like, I go to the movies, I pay like $3.50 an hour plus popcorn. It was like $7.50 an hour. this is great. This is such a great deal on entertainment, you know? And you gotta play it, right? Because the first like, 5 scenarios I'll learn through is kind of a little slow. If it were up to me next time, I'd say to just crank those all out in a day. Make a day of it, like go through the whole tutorial and then go on to the next scenarios, right? But every subsequent one, you're like, oh, I can't wait to use my new toys, right? I can't wait to, make my deck better. I can't wait to face the new challenge of the game. It's incredible. And we still have, we had gone through only really half of the content, right? Because we still have some scenarios that we locked during our initial play. We have 2 characters, the Hatchet and look at these dudes. We haven't even played, this guy looks like a lobster with a sickle. And this guy's like, edgy. We haven't even played with these guys. And so it's like, we still have more content to go through. We have more events to go through. We have more scenarios to go through. It's great. I'm excited to get back into this game, Once we, have kind of let loose our scenarios again and try again, I'm so pumped, And after that, I'm excited to get back into the original Gloomhaven. Next year I'm thrilled for Frosthaven with the new characters. The Necromancer looks sick. The Geminate looks sick. Oh, Isaac Beaton. Jaws of the Lion is such a wonderful primer to the systems of Gloomhaven. And it's an incredible experience to get. But, if you're in the hobby, it's $50 is a game, right? It's a pretty high tier game, or not high tier, let's say pretty high production value game, or 2, lower production value games or something along the lines of that, all right? Or a crap ton of spaghetti. That's spaghetti for a year, And so if you got to think about, do you want to get Jaws of the Lion? Do you want to get 2 copies of Azul? Do you want to get 50 boxes of spaghetti? Those are tough choices to make, And I will say, if you want if you want a great puzzle experience, you gotta get Jaws of the Lion, right? It's such a great way to go. But maybe if you want more replayability, right? Maybe if you can't get people together enough that frequently, maybe you want to go for a different multiplayer game, right? And if you want story, there's other options that you want to think about, Like, we've also been recently playing Legacy of Dragonhold, Nikki Valens' design, and oh, wow. We're 2 days into the 2nd book of that game, and it's incredible. It's like a choose your own adventure where you can play multiplayer because everyone kind of switches around making decisions. And it's really a great deal of fun. I mean, listen, Gloomhaven has a story to it. It has a lot of story, and it's not a bad story. It's just, Isaac's got a doctorate in physics, not in creative writing. Sorry, Isaac. And he's aware of that. Everyone's aware of that. But you play Gloomhaven for the combat puzzle and not really the story so much, And so again, if you have $50 burning a hole in your pocket, or if you've been saving up and you really want a good experience, or if you, again, if you feel the feelings at the beginning of the review, you love the idea of Gloomhaven, but it's too intimidating for you, you gotta go for Jaws of the Lion. It's just such a wonderful experience. But if you're concerned about a legacy campaign, if you're worried about the nature of a co-op with you and your partners, then maybe go for a multiplayer game. If you want better story, buy Legacy of Dragonhold, or a book, or a lot of books. $5 to $50 gets you 3 books. Books are expensive now. You go to a discount bookstore, it's 10 books. But it's up to you. It's just, I don't know. This is definitely a game that's got probably the most playtime for me, or at the very least the most plays, besides maybe Scythe. Scythe was the first game I got in the hobby, and my in-laws loved it, I played the ever-loving crap out of that game. Anyway, Jaws of the Lion, get it. It's incredible. Isaac Childress deserves a lot of money for what he does, and he gets it, which I'm happy for, Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm John. This is Hawaiian Sweaters, a new board game review channel. As if there are not enough of them, but I wanted to see more content in that sphere. There's only so many episodes that other people put out that I kind of like, so I'm trying to see about putting more out there. If you like what we do, please subscribe, leave a comment, like the video. I don't really know how YouTube works. I just know people say that, and a lot of people say that. We don't really have an email list or a social media yet, so hitting the notification button is really the only way you're going to be able to hear from us, or following whatever account you saw this from, whatever social media I posted this on. I'm going to be listing my collection on Boardgamegeek in the description of this video. Those are the games I have and I'm waiting on. A couple of them are Kickstarters and a couple of them are just basic games. If you want to see any of those games reviewed, you know, like, just leave a comment. I'd be happy to check them out, you know. This is a first time project as well, and we're kind of, you know, limited on funds as time goes on, you know. Hopefully we'll get like a Twitter, a camera, a real camera, it's a real microphone, some decent lighting, you know. Bit of production in general, but for now we're kind of, you know, stuck to a phone, a desk lamp, my living room, you know, my collection of games already, you know. But if you have any, you know, criticism or constructive criticism or any ideas to help us improve, please let us know. You know, we're going to be checking out everything you do. So yeah. Anyway, thank you guys again so much. Have a wonderful rest of your awake time.